Faza'il A'maal, More Trouble Than It's Worth, Part 4, Tablighi Jamaat Dissimulation.
Wahdatul Wujud means that the only true existence belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That will that will never perish, never originated. Uske siwa har wujud besabat, fani or na mukammal hai. Everything other than Allah that exists, it will perish one day. That is Wahdatul Wujud. Then he gives an example. He says, iski nazir yu samajiye, जैसे दिन के वक्त आसमान पर सूरज के मौजूद होने की वजह से सितारे नजर नहीं आते. So during the broad daylight you don't see stars, you just see the sun. अगरचे वो मौजूद हैं, though the stars exist but you cannot see them during the daylight, broad daylight. लेकिन सूरज का वजूद उन पर इस तरह गालिब हो जाता है कि उनका वजूद नजर नहीं आता. So the existence of sun takes over the existence of those stars. They are there but we cannot see them.
Yeah.
This is Wahdatul Wujud. What's wrong in this? I mean, by believing in Wahdatul Wujud, and by the way, it is not necessary that one even believes in this ta'bir.
In part number 4, I'd like to go through what Dr. Turkistany stated about the Sufi background of the author of the book, Muhammad Zakaria, in addition to the banning of the book, the Faza'il A'maal, which I will refer to as the FA, and thereafter the unfaithful nature of the progeny of the TJ, in that they did not stick to the requests of the author to be faithful in their reproduction of his literature. So I'll give you the screenshots, you make up your own mind. The first thing to mention in this regard is the fact that this movement, the movement of the TJ, very clearly is based within the realms of tasawwuf. And like the opening video suggested, there was a discussion about the concept of wahdatul wujud, which means the unicity of existence, the oneness, the uniqueness of existence, meaning purely from a linguistic point of view, there is only one existence. And then the author, who is two cult members discussing the topic, are trying to explain away what this unicity of existence is. But Ibn Arabi, who is a Sufi master, and others like Mansur al-Hallaj, who I have covered thoroughly in multiple parts in my Curate's Egg series, which you should refer to, on Ibn Arabi and Mansur al-Hallaj. These are clearly Sufis who believe in pantheism. And in fact, if you look at those episodes, I've proven how they make no attempt to actually hide their pantheism. But what the TJ do is they're in a liminal middle ground where they don't know whether they want to believe this or they don't want to believe it. And he even says in this clip I've given, you don't have to accept this ta'bir, means you don't have to accept this. Well, is it something that you believe or is it something you don't believe? You know, and if it's something you don't believe, why are people like Mufti Taqi Uthmani at such pains to explain it to people? It's because it is something they believe. And this is where the dissimulation comes in. They will try to hide this from the common people. And this is something they can't hide because they can't hide the history. Here we have on page number 92 the description of who the author of the FA was. His name is Muhammad Zakaria Kandahlawi. Kandah was the place where he was born. Madani is the place he migrated to. Al-Hanafi is the terms of the school of law that he followed. And then he is the following affiliations to Sufi madhabs: Al-Qadiri, Al-Chisti, Sahrawardi, and Naqshbandi. So he is clearly a Sufi, much like his forebears in terms of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, and his forebears Haji Imdadullah were very committed Sufis. there's the proof for it, and there's the explanation of who these individual Sufi tariqas are. The next thing is this Sufism actually caused their movement, as mentioned here on page 148, it caused their movement to be banned. It states that it talks about how confusing the publishing was, and the editing, and the multiple different forms of distribution of the book. It actually uses the word that it was very confusing because the contents were changed, the titles were changed, the orders were changed, verses were changed, hadith were changed, Arabic text differed from English text. In some cases, the English text was much better than the Arabic text, and all of it was originally from Urdu. So we're dealing with 3-4 different languages, and the confusion arising from this, meaning there's no uniform text, causes a lot of problems for the TJ. In any case, because the book was it did have antithetical themes within it, and it did have problems in the hadith, in the sense that the vast majority of them, or 56% of them, were actually fabricated, made up, and the verses of the Quran had many errors in them. Saudi Arabia actually banned the book. So how did the TJ respond to this ban? The way they responded to this ban is they started to remove certain terms. So here we have on page 159 a discussion of what they did in order to deal with this ban. It says here, such terms, if translated as they are, may antagonize some groups, meaning a lot of Muslims wouldn't like some of the terms that were used, because they mention things like wahdat al-wujud and unicity of existence, and praise of Sufis like Mansur al-Hallaj and Ibn Arabi. Not necessarily within the FA, but the authors and the ideologues of this movement definitely praise Ibn Arabi and Mansur al-Hallaj, including people like Mufti Taqi Uthmani, whose relationship with the movement is unquestioned. A good example of this is the replacement of the term Sufiya with the term ulama. So the question you should ask a TJ, if you are a Sufi, and if you follow the tariqas of Sufism as your founders and as the authors of this book, Muhammad Zakaria and Ashraf Ali Thanvi, they were clearly Sufis and they were proud of their Sufism, why should you change this term? So this is dissimulation, this is trying to deceive the masses. And this is another reason why we need to put this book to bed. Enough of the TJ. Now I want to give you another book recommendation, and this book recommendation is a book by a scholar called Bilal Phillips, and it's called Usul Hadith, which is the foundations of Hadith, the methodology of ahadith or Hadith evaluation. And this is available free as a PDF. And in this particular book, he gives quite simple isnads, and an isnad is given here. It's a very short isnad, and it's simply this: the Prophet said to a person called Ibn Umar, who's known as a Sahabi, companion, said to Ibn Dinar, who is a Tabi'i, someone that comes after the companion, said to a person called Malik, and he's a Atba' at-Tabi'in, he's a follower of the companion, or the follower, and then the Atba' at-Tabi'in, Yahya. So this is a simple isnad, that's all an isnad was. But the point is, I'll give you one page from this. There's another thing that should be considered here. Certain terms were used when these different levels and these different people in these groups narrated to each other. And so when you have a hadith, it would have in between these narrators the following sorts of terms: haddathana, which means it was narrated, and it's truncated to thana or na. Akhbarana means we were informed. Anba'ana, we were told. Sami'na or sumi'a, which means it's basically heard. And an, or simply just means from. So these are the sort of terms that are used within hadith science. So this is a good book to read. Stay tuned for many more parts.